It's a monopod. What's up, everybody? Today we're going to be taking a look at this Sirui monopod, and it's not just any monopod, it's actually a carbon fiber monopod, which, if you know anything about carrying around video or photography gear on a long shoot, then you know that you want as much carbon fiber to lighten the load as you can. Now, a quick little disclaimer, I am a bit of a Sirui fan. Most of my tripods and monopods are Sirui themselves, but what I will say about this unit is I have a couple of major gripes. I generally think they're very well built, and we'll talk about some of the well-built features in this unit as we go through it, but I have two major gripes with it that I'll talk about as we go through the pieces later on. But for now, let me give you the context on where I was using it and how I was using it so that you understand where this may be applicable and whether or not you want to take into consideration the gripes I actually had. For me, this was used as a workhorse, daily workhorse on field shoots for videography. I actually had it combined with this awesome tripod head, which I love, and you can buy them as a unit, a complete case together for about $300, or you can buy the standalone bottom piece here for about $180. That's this particular unit itself right here, and I got this Post-it because it's a catchy little title, the P-424SR. That's a nice name to remember. I think the 424 actually denotes the model in terms of the height or something to do with the sticks, because if you look on their website, they actually have one aluminum version and then multiple carbon fibers. This one here I got because it was particularly compact, but also could extend close to somewhere around 6 feet. It's one of the tallest ones they had. So for a bang for buck size-wise to extension-wise, it really met a lot of features. But again, being a videographer, I would use it with a pretty decent, this is a very sturdy head. I would use it, and I would sometimes even put on top of this a Ronin S, which, believe it or not, it actually worked, and it was quite a crazy feature. But the whole point was being quick and run and gun. And because a tripod, quite often when you're doing a field shoot and you're moving around from location to location with clients, you can't just keep packing it up and putting it away. So this is very easy because it's just a quick flip to the feet, which easily manipulate, and I can be done and walking along with my camera on top. So I used it quite heavily in that context. I think a lot of people getting monopods are probably looking for photography, wedding shoots, where they can just be still, have a nice stable shot, maybe do some 60 frame video if they are quickly, but predominantly for photographers. I mean, that's most of the case where I usually see people, but lo and behold, it can be used as a videography situation, and that's what I did, and that should give you hopefully some context on how I felt about some of the gripes that come up a little bit later. Without further ado, let's actually look through the unit, and we're going to start from the top and work our way down. If you actually take a look at this unit, you can see that this top section here is one of the business parts of it, where you've got a nice piece of aluminum machining here. This whole piece here underneath this little grip is actually a nice solid piece of aluminum. Even this is a locking mechanism that allows you to loosen up, and the whole thing spins freely, and it feels so nice. I mean, I can't lie about how nice it feels, and that's one of the features about Sirui products that I really like, is their metal machining is generally pretty nice. And go ahead, let's take a listen and see if you can hear anything going on here. That was smooth as butter, and it's really a nice little feature to have at top, because when you lock this thing down, you can just quickly do left and right slight movements. If you don't have a decent tripod head, this thing will allow you to do that. You don't always need to if you got a nice tripod head though. The grip up here, I've actually used this for quite a while, and one of the things I note is a simple thing, that this thing is still intact. It hasn't completely degraded, which often happens on these foamy grip pieces. So that actually says that it's a decent one, not something super cheap, because quite often, again, on cheaper products, these really collapse. This is your standard little thread that you can mount any of your tripod heads on, and if you unscrew it, you can actually take this handle out if you don't want this piece here, although I left it on for myself because quite often I would hang extra batteries or things off of this that would be a simple little catch-all for what I had on my gear. This is the carbon fiber section piece, and again, when I talk about this model here, that denotes how many of the sections you get. You can get bigger models with 4 pieces, you can get extra like sliding sections right here, but this is the 3-piece section. I think it fully extends out to about 78 inches, and if we take a look, we can see, yep, there we go, carbon fiber all the way along. So let me move these feet out of the way, and we'll talk about this portion of it, because this is actually the first of my gripes about this design. Now, it is an inherent design with monopods as a whole, but it's just something I figured I'd talk about. Now, these on the Sirui are really nice. The rubber is a really decent quality. There's no problem. The grip there is nice. It hasn't really started to degrade like some rubbers do, you know, when they start to get sweaty and sticky, or they fall apart. Again, I've had this for several years and really no problem here. These are still really good. They also lock very easy, not a lot of pressure, full weight can be put on that thing, and I don't have to worry about falling down. Like I said, on this I used to have a Ronin S with a full mirrorless camera, a big lens, and it still would accommodate the weight very easily. I wouldn't really have to reef this hard in order to make it stick into the position I wanted it to. But here comes the problem I have, and I guess it's an inherent problem with this style of sliding mechanism or locking mechanism. I prefer the latches when it comes to my tripods and monopods. Now, I know that this is a very ubiquitous version of how to deal with this situation of extension tubes. You slide and lock, and the thing moves up, and you tighten it down, and mostly I think it's a space-saving sort of technique that they use for the design, but from my perspective, it's actually kind of cumbersome, because even in this review, I've actually not been able to fully, like if I'm locking this one, I just unlocked this one right now, see? I just unlocked it, trying to kind of talk about it. So while you're grabbing it, you need to make sure to grab up here, and then the one you want to grab. So it is a bit of a, see, now I just grabbed that, and every one of these unlocked, right? So that is probably just a little bit of a personal note that I would consider is something that's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it definitely annoys me. And I have changed all of my tripods and every other one of my units that has anything like this to the latching type. Again, these are good mechanisms. The rubber on them is really nice. So if you don't mind that and you actually like it, which I know a lot of people do because it doesn't catch on things, they prefer it, go for it. This is still a fantastic unit. It does have your little locking mechanism that shows you right here. Sometimes when you're trying to use a monopod, you're not quite sure what's lefty tighty, righty loosey. That also kind of gets me a little bit confused. So it would be nice if there was like locking mechanism lines on here, like this way, lock left, but you get used to it a little bit after a while. But if you are going to use this in a quick fashion, just keep that in mind. It's not great for that. I've had many times, again, a lot of weight on this, unlocked it, and the whole thing started to slide down. Luckily, I was holding some part of it and kind of noticed, but I've had some near close calls where I was trying to maneuver this, and the whole thing completely slid out from under me, which isn't great. So now we come down to the, I guess, last section, or the last couple sections here, and you're probably wondering, what are these two blue bottom pieces here? Well, the first one is actually an interesting feature, which I'm not 100% sure on it, but I believe it has to do with exchanging out the actual tripod bottom, and you can see it can go down into this configuration, which is another version of locking it, so you can have it in that fixed position or that position, but we'll talk more about the tripod in a second. This blue is another unlocking mechanism, and if we go in the direction, which it has it here, that this is unlock, bada bing, I can take the entire piece off. I believe that is because you can get different lengths of this, and you can get maintenance pieces, you can get different pieces for this. I think they have other things that go in here, but as you can see, it actually has a hex locking style, so it doesn't spin. It does have this over thread, threads on here, and then the threads on the inside on this one. I assume, again, all of them are this way, and it allows for you to put a different piece on the bottom here, or take it off and change it out. Perhaps you could even extend multiple of these. I don't know what they have as far as accessories, but it is one of the features here. I've never had any problem with it coming off, and it is a pretty nice locking mechanism, so I don't think it's something you really have to worry about too much if it's not something you intend to use. While we have that thing off, it's going to be easier for me to manipulate under the camera here as a standalone unit. As you can see, we've got our next blue piece here, and we have the multiple configurations of this tripod, and there you go. There's the tripod. It works. It's a tripod. Awesome. The blue section here is on traditional monopods. A lot of them have this actual feature where you have a ball swivel mount down here, and that is this, where it actually allows you to tilt the entire head up there and have a nice flexible range of motion. And you have this nice tightening mechanism. All of this is machined metal. This entire piece here, everything I'm holding is nice machined metal. So it is a very decent product, it seems, at the outset. It feels very nice. It's a nice, slow little turn. It feels like it's well engaged. Nothing in it feels crunchy or gnarly in any way. And as you can see here, in order to put this into its proper position, I tighten it down, and it slots in there with that groove. So it helps it maintain its back to vertical position, right? Then you use this to tighten the whole thing down, or you could have used it to kind of put a little drag on it, and boom, that doesn't go anywhere. This part of the unit, I never had any problems with. This was absolutely fantastic. But the rest of this is where my second major flaw in this unit comes in. Now, don't get me wrong, this is why I use the entire piece. I got one that had a very long base. Now, this model here, one of the reasons for the extension tubes, I like the height, but I also like the width of the feet on this because, again, in cases where I was putting a heavy head on it or a heavy camera, putting a gimbal sometimes, which I know it's not intended for, but I was like, I need as long, strong of a base as possible. And considering the way physics works, if you put a long tube on the top of this, you're gonna have a lot of tension down here. What I will say is that there is what I believe a major flaw when it comes to this tripod design. And I believe it's for modularity. I believe it's for repairs. I'm not 100% sure what the full version is, but you can see that each one of these legs has multiple Allen keys. Now this is the actual spinning one, and we have this nice little locking mechanism. I guess I'll show you that. That's the locking mechanism. We have those two clicking positions. I'm sure you can hear it. That doesn't lock in, but it does allow you to put it all the way down, which is awesome for traveling very fast. So each one of those has a little clicky locking mechanism. Each one of these Allen keys is to help us fix this entire portion of the tripod to this moving mechanism. So the portion that actually allows it to swivel and lock, it's a separate unit that locks into there. And we can actually see there, you can see the thing going in and out on this side, right? It's not a part of that. What happens is it's actually separated. It's not the same piece of metal. This is two separate pieces of metal. And believe it or not, as well machining as this company goes for, there's a little gap in these holes that you, trust me, you can notice. And if I can actually show you, I think this one's the worst. See that little, see how it's raised out just slightly? Now I pushed it in, it's gone. I push it back, it raises out. That's slop. There's slop in it. Not to mention the machining for this gap here compared to the actual little nub causes quite a bit of play. Now, you do ask yourself, well, when it's flat, doesn't it seem pretty good? Yes. But as I had said before, physics being physics, when you extend a really long pole, the force up this end of it causes a lot of tension. It's a leveraged force, which means it's putting as much pressure as you can. And the further the pole goes out, the more leverage it has, essentially meaning that this is where all the holding back is coming from. So it's the weakest link in the chain by far already, let alone we've now made it two pieces. I don't want to go too much into it other than I think that's a major flaw from something that is supposed to be, everything about this is nice. It's got good weight, it's heavy, it feels nice, and it's heavy in the context of, you know, it's a piece of metal. It's not complete plastic, so it's not as light as maybe something cheap, but it's nice, except for, I don't know what's happening there. One other thing I'll even notice about this is that this is a threaded section down here where traditionally on monopods, they have, if you know anything about monopods, a spike or a rubber piece where you can use it to balance on the ground. Right? You use it and you can use it, sort of manipulate it like this really quickly. So you never even have to put the feet down, right? You can just run along, chump it down and use the camera on top of it with the rubber on the bottom if you're shooting, say, in a parking lot. I had to take it out because when fully flat, it actually didn't sit completely flat given the amount of distance. That distance there would cause it to actually roll on top of the little rubber thing. So with the rubber thing in it, it actually didn't lay completely flat on the ground. Now, if you ask me, that's a pretty big problem and kind of a design flaw, but I could be off. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. I feel like that's a pretty standard feature in a monopod, having the rubber thing on the bottom, and it's pretty standard when people are asking, is that a monopod? Yeah, it's got that piece on the bottom. But then the tripod never could fully get flat and feel really solid until that was out. And that's why it's out. And actually, I've lost it. I don't even have it anymore because I don't know where it is because I took it out. It is a bit of a bummer, but I will say overall, everything else about this is pretty nice. All right, now all gripes aside, who is this thing for? Well, I really do think this is still a pretty decent monopod. Like I said, I'm a bit of a fanboy of Sirui, and yes, that's how I think you say it. If you disagree with me, leave in the comments how you actually think you say it, but I'm pretty sure I saw somewhere that that's how it's pronounced. But I don't know. I'm a pretty big fanboy of Sirui products, and like I said, I have a number of other pieces. I think it's the nice machining and decent parts and mechanical pieces, for the most part, that I really enjoy. That, however, was the worst thing I've encountered from their products. Is it a deal breaker? No, it's not a deal breaker. I think in most contexts, it probably works well for many people, and it might have just really lost a lot of slop over time because I was pushing it to its limits with such heavy gear on top. It probably wasn't meant to be used at capacity, and I fully understand that. But it is still something that I'm kind of surprised I even had to encounter, because I really thought this would have had to have been the strongest portion of a unit like this. Again, physics being the way physics is, you know, like that. Long story short, who do I think it's for? I think it's pretty much for anybody looking to cut down on weight, but also having good products. Again, you can buy really cheap Amazon monopods. They'll get you by, they'll work. But if you want a nice one, if you want something that actually works most of the time, all the time, then you probably want something like this. Like I said, there's a package where this actually comes on top of it already for about $300. And then they also have this just by itself. I actually have links in the description. If you are interested in check that out, those affiliate links in there will get you straight over to the single version and the one with the head on top of it. I will be doing a review on this puppy if you're interested in this, so keep an eye out for that. But otherwise, let me know what you think. Do you think that that's a deal breaker for you? Is that something that's really annoying considering how much it costs? Or would you still purchase this? Or am I just being over the top? I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. And thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.